Well, I know that that you remember when. Well, yes, it's still ongoing. How we're trying to address COVID-19,
Yeah.
the pandemic globally, but the searchlight then focuses on the health sector. I know that they've talked about, yes, we've identified certain things in the health sector, and then at the Minister of Health, Judge Day was talking about how that their plan to do something about it is still in place and ongoing, but it is something that I would like to see a lot more because, I mean, nobody needs to remind anyone about how we keep talking about medical tourism and what we need to do to ensure that the health sector is up and running, at least a lot better, having seen the challenges that, the gaps, as it were, as a result of COVID-19. Yes, it did hit the world globally and people, different countries responding differently. But then an aspect of this entire thing is actually the polio, how we have gone ahead and handled this in terms of Nigeria, along several other countries, being declared polio-free. I think just about 2 or 3 countries across the world now that are still grappling with it, one of which happens to be Afghanistan. So we're off that hook. And yes, it did happen some time ago, but there were certain causative factors that made us slip back into it. And so at this point in time, many just hoping and watching, hoping that we'll maintain all the measures that we did put in place to attain this status, having been declared polio-free. It is indeed a good thing, a huge landmark. It just goes to say that, look, when we do put certain things in place in this sector, we can get results, no matter how Herculean it may seem. But this, it is indeed a good one.
You know, I foresee another major hill for us to climb. But just before that, the other country is Pakistan. And I mean, Nigeria was literally the one dragging Africa back from, you know, being declared polio-free. But eventually it happened. I remember last year, Nigeria was said to be, well, polio was said to be no more endemic in Nigeria. And everybody was pensive. Will we reach that point where, you know, Africa and Nigeria will be declared polio-free? Well, it has happened. A lot of, you know, jubilation, especially if you know how far we have come, how the journey has been for Nigerians, especially health workers that have to go to those rural areas to try to sensitize people to bring their children out to be vaccinated. A lot of them have been, they've received violent responses. Let me just put it that way. But you know, I foresee a major challenge ahead. So there's a race towards a vaccine for COVID-19, right? You see what happened with polio in Nigeria, and you wonder what might happen when vaccines eventually become available. As much as we're celebrating this, I'm wondering, what did we learn from this? Because as it stands right now, there are a lot of people, they call them anti-vaxxers, that don't exactly see that as a way forward. They don't even want to hear about vaccines. And you wonder, what did we learn from polio that we can use moving forward? How do we even have that conversation, really? It appears as though a lot of people have diverse opinions. It's coming. It might not be next month, it might not be next year, but I foresee that challenge. And I really hope that we don't go back or go the route of polio yet again with this one.
Well, maybe perhaps some historical background might help here. You know, what we're celebrating today dates back to well before 1988, when it was just a major problem. Yeah, was a major problem for the whole world. And so the World Health Assembly, made up of WHO, CDC in the US, UNICEF, and a number of other organizations came up and said, you know what, let's stop this, nonsense, if we can use that word. And they decided to carry out a plan they called the Global Polio Eradication Initiative. And it was an aggressive and concerted global fight against polio. Now, since that time, I remember that in 1988, an estimated 350,000 cases, were recorded. More than 50% of those cases were in Africa. They recorded about 350,000 cases in about 125 countries. More than 50% of those cases were in Africa. By 2019, only about 175 cases were reported. And the WHO then declared in 2019, that was last year, that polio was no longer endemic in Nigeria at the time, meaning we had not recorded any single case since 2016. Given that, we can now say that we have overcome that. And just as you have said, well, we benchmark polio now against COVID-19, but how about others? There are a number of others, that we deal with every year. There is Lassa fever that we deal with, on a moment-to-moment basis, and it will seem like, look, is it that we can't combat this thing, especially those ones that we know they come at certain seasons of each year. So now that we have this certification, so to speak, and we are all celebrating it, let's come back home. Let's look at all of these things. Well, one of the drawbacks that our fight against polio had was the cultural, perceptions that debilitated against the fight in certain parts of the country. But thankfully, that has been dealt with. And should there be any such thing, I think the most important thing is for us to ensure that we are communicating right about these things so that our people can have a buy-in and we all fight whatever the issue is as one. One of the things that also make this a little more concerning is that it usually affects people who cannot help themselves. Gratifyingly, that is out of our hands. We're over that now. But should there be any such, Chamberlain started by saying it's about the health sector. Right. And medical service delivery is something that we cannot just toy with.
And don't forget the security situation as well up north, part of the impediments. Yeah. There's so many resistance, there's so many drawbacks. I mean, Dr. Faisal Shoaib was talking about how it took us a long time grappling with all of these things, but good to see that we eventually overcame it, and so many will be wondering and hoping that all of these security challenges across the country do not in any way interfere and then cause some certain setbacks which we overcame previously, to ensure that this is no longer the case.
If I can expand that conversation just a tad bit, health is not the only thing that security impinges on in our nation. One of the greatest challenges of healthcare delivery is access to it. And most certainly, security is a debilitating factor. It's a debilitating factor. Another debilitating factor is economic concerns. Health workers all over the nation, especially in the part of Nigeria that you talked about, will tell you that it's a major challenge to even get enough resources to be able to access that healthcare. That is why back in the Second Republic, when some politicians were campaigning with free healthcare delivery, it was something that was very welcome. Can we even dare do that now?
Big question right there. Well, we need to come back to the papers soon.
Yes, indeed. So we'll do that in just a moment. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Let's run you through some of the dailies. We'll start with Vanguard newspaper this morning and look at the lead story. Economy. Industry leaders warn of gloom ahead. Economy in total closure during Q2. That's ascribed to Nasima. Economy sliding downwards pre-2016 recession. That's from NECA. Insurance always first casualty. Operators. And you sometimes ask yourself, how active have they been? Insurance sector. Do you have insurance? I don't know.
Well, I think everyone starts with third-party insurance, and then you move all the way up.
But it is because of lack of insurance that you see the road rage when they hit the cars. Everybody goes crazy.
They have the third-party list, I know.
How much is it? Oh
my goodness.
Can they even pay to buy? What can that do?
Headlamps, right?
Add to that the fact that even when you have that third-party insurance, you won't claim it.
Look, even when people have comprehensive insurance, they still think like they have third-party insurance. Yeah, I've seen that happen. Not knowing that, look, if it's comprehensive insurance, listen, you need to
relax.
Yeah.
Why are you going to say
when
calm
that
down?
happens on the roads, your insurance is supposed to kick in. Unless, of course, they're trying to be smart. That's if you let them.
Yeah.
So, and then you see recession expected in Q3. David Adonri. Not much impact on stock market, Omorojian. So, there you go. That's what you see right there on the front page. Edo. I'm not working to rig for Obaseki, says INEC ex-staff. Obaseki running on excuses, blackmail, APC. APC has run out of ideas. says PDP, and it just keeps going on and on. Well, don't forget your Mr. and Mrs., but this also should be of equal importance. Many states asking for state police can't pay salaries. Presidency. Ooh, okay. You see, look, they put this on the front page. Usually it's on the back page. Chaos in Barca as Messi asks to leave. Oh boy. But let me even take
That's why it's front page.
Well, can you believe his exit clause?
Leaving to where, though?
Well, big question. So look at the back page now. Vanguard Sports. Be patient with the Sime. Napoli president tells fans. You know what pressure can do to a lot of people. That's Vanguard this morning.
We'll take a look at the Nigerian Tribune. Big story is on power project. FG to deliver 300 megawatts to every state. Secures $6.1 billion funding. Well, you see the rider. Buhari defers 35% import duty on electricity meters. I'm sure you're wondering, so what does that mean? Trying to get a meter? Well, page 6 of the Nigerian Tribune might shed more light on that. But let me talk about this picture on the front page. It shows President Buhari looking at what has been termed Zamfara gold, as it were, as the governor of Zamfara presents Zamfara gold to President Buhari. I think it was just 2 days ago that the CBN procured this gold bar for millions of dollars. You know, gold apparently is a big deal in Nigeria now. And you wonder, is that why we've been having the banditry and all that? Well,
Will they stop going to Dubai now to buy gold?
Well, and I hear that Nigeria's gold can actually, do wonders anyway, but you find more details.
With all the procurement, with all the work that the Ministry of Mines and Steel Development is doing, hopefully. But how about we have a foundry in Nigeria?
A what?
Just go ahead with it.
Okay, well, more on the front page. This one has been brewing for a while, but see this new twist. IGP can't determine Amotekun structure. Afenifere replies presidency. It's on page 26. Well, you wonder what that is building up to, really. Especially because security is a major concern, and you expect that we sing the same tune. But, I mean, we disagree to agree, right? More stories. FG targets creation of 12 million jobs with National Gas Expansion Program. Buhari names 9 key areas to improve livelihood of Nigerians. Well, you can say that again. It's on page 25. But let's quickly look at the back page. I mean, what is news without sports, right? Let me go now. Messi writes Barca. In fact, that's a major story for the Nigerian Tribune this morning. So let's leave it there.
Now, The Guardian is about how much you spend, how much you have spent over the past 5 months paying for electricity. Nigerians consume 293 billion naira electricity in 5 months. We're looking for $6.1 billion funding.
Yeah.
Well,
you want to take it from us now?
That's it right there.
This is not even $1 billion dollars actually, so.
So you see?
293. It's not even
Doesn't
1 billion.
sound like good news.
Well, it doesn't. Well, you know what? Go on. What do the writers
What's
say?
worse, the riders, Discos fail to remit 236.5 billion naira. And that makes that definitely something of concern, and CBN moves to address liquidity crisis. You may want to find out. The story continues today on page 2 and not on page 6 as previously. Of course, that picture of the Zamfara governor with the president is there. Right under that one, ACF chair Ogbe warns North destroying self. Says leaders must end senseless killings. Well, about time we began to hear these voices and the action to follow them. That story continues on page 2. Chloroquine potent for COVID-19.
Oh, wow.
Says NAFDAC. Now, are we now going to have an upsurge in requests for chloroquine at the pharmacies? It's right there on the front page of The Guardian. You may want to find out. And that's also, of course, coming from NAFDAC.
You know what I've learned this COVID-19? Sometimes, if you're not an expert, just stay away from it. Just report as it is and just move away, really.
Okay, we chatted this the other time, like Polio, we can defeat COVID-19, says Buhari. But, one thing came to my mind while the report was going on. We should celebrate the people who went about, giving this vaccination to people all over the nation, all over the nooks and crannies of Nigeria, they deserve to be celebrated. That's the Guardian this morning.
Okay, take a look at New Telegraph next. Buhari rolls out exit plans.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's the way New Telegraph reports it this morning. Education, health, economy, anti-corruption top agenda. FG backs global action against terrorism, arms spread. Governor, illegal gold miners, patrons paying with weapons. So you see what fuels some of those actions you see there. And the way they say exit plans. When you see it as a politician, you begin to jostle harder.
There's going to be an opening soon.
Yeah, so you just, perhaps if you're on the bike, you just up the ante and keep cycling a lot harder, but you're just freezing. So that's just, yes, it's the big one on the front page here this morning, because I mean, some of the daily says, what I'll do in the remaining part of my tenure.
Exactly.
Yeah, so.
It's 3 years, not tomorrow, 3 years.
It's in the perspectives now, isn't it? And then you see excitement as WHO declares Nigeria, Africa polio free. UNICEF, Dangote, Lord FG want routine immunization. Operative word there, you might add. Air pollution can affect lung health of infants, just so you know. Senate queries SEC over 10.3 billion naira staff wage bill that you can equally check out. And then metering. You may, sometimes forget it with all of this headlines just coming, reckless abandon. Metering, FG approves 35% import adjustment tax operation deferment. You may want to find out what is the implication of that to you getting metered above all else. That's New Telegraph this morning.
Well, the Daily Trust leads with this story. Fani Kayode under fire for attacking Daily Trust reporter. You see, riders, we stand by our correspondent, Media Trust. NUJ, IPC, Amnesty International, CPJ, SERAP, others react, and definitely their reaction was quite strong. And there's this story, my encounter with ex-aviation minister, who's saying that, with more details on page 5.
That clip is all over the place now.
Oh yeah, page 5 of the Daily Trust. And you see this one, I mean, yet another twist to a story we've reported, time and again. Even this morning, we reported it twice already. Governors to pay community police officers' salaries, force headquarters. You recall the previous one says, well, the Inspector General of Police will, quote, determine how it is run. But apparently, governors are to pay community officers or police officers salaries.
That's what the DIG, who was on the program yesterday, said. Okay. We asked him, do you mean that? I say, yes, that's where it's going to go.
It's just stipends, don't worry, because they already have a good job.
So whatever happened to he who pays the piper?
Well, he's not paying the piper.
I mean, in this context, yes.
Well, because he's saying that because, that was a concern too. But it says, look, they already have a good job. So putting in 16 hours isn't going to count for much.
16 hours a week.
So if the pay, they're not dependent on that pay. That pay is next to nothing. It's just almost like community service. So
it's like how they now leaving the office and then
don't use that. don't do that. Thank you. Oh my goodness. Well, you find more details.
I forgot to ask, are they going to give them police uniforms?
You wonder.
Well, he said they're going to have uniforms. He said
they will.
They'll have
right.
uniforms. So we'll see.
Right. So
but what kind of uniform? That's another thing.
Okay, so that would be like the night
help
job.
your community.
Okay, man, a lot of questions really about this, and it'll be good to have these questions answered, so we know what to expect, what we're getting into. And
for some who may be asking questions about that, you may want to have a little more. The interview we had with the DIG yesterday is already on our YouTube page at channelstv.com, so you just go and check it out.
So here there. Well, that's on page 8 of the Daily Trust, and you see foreigners buy gold with arms in Zamfara. So page 6. May Lafia was issued query before he resigned from NIPS. That's on page 38. A couple of other stories really on the front page of the Daily Trust this morning, but let's leave it there.
And the Daily Times newspaper leads with an economy-related story. Nigeria's 2020 GDP contraction equivalent to entire 2021 budget. What does that mean?
Put it in that context, it hits you differently, really.
Well, Nigeria's second quarter GDP report by National Bureau of Statistics is the chart that you see there. Real GDP is 34.02 trillion, and some details are under it. And nominal GDP, 15.89 trillion, with the key sectoral breakdown also right there on the front page. Something I'm sure economists will definitely react to. Corruption. Malami didn't witch hunt anybody in Magu probe. We want to find out who said that on page 4 of the paper this morning. Journalists attack NUJ Daily Trust, flay Fanikade's attack on reporter. That story is on page 2. And legislature reps get Niger Delta Development Commission NBET audit report about time. That story is on page 4. And editorial is on e-learning and matters arising. That's the Daily Times today.
All right, so there you go. That also ends a look at some of the dailies this morning. We will be back in just a moment. Don't go away. Welcome back. Well, yes, indeed, we do have the governor of Ondo State, Rotimi Akeredolu, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, joining us now to give his perspectives on community policing above all else. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on the program. Well, we know that, yes, you're seeking re-election, but are you still finding sufficient time to focus, concentrate, and govern in the midst of all that is going on?
Well, I can assure you that everything remains in top gear. You now have to more or less have multi-function. The governance must not suffer because of politics. So we just have to do some balancing act. So yes, we are politicking. We are moving around to get the people convinced to give us a second term, but the work cannot suffer. So we still have to do the work. So it's more or less like what you call multitasking. So there's no other problem. I know that we can do this sufficiently well, and we'll keep pushing.
All right, good to hear that. But then, in order for things not to equally suffer, that's why security is a very important aspect of things. And the federal government did approve 13 billion for community policing, which has been in the news for a while now. So, how significant would you say that move is?
Well, I believe that having community police, it's a good idea. I mean, but how you run it is what we must also sit down to discuss. I'm one of the people who is of the strong view that there must be multi-level policing, and you can have at local government, you can have state, you can have the federal. So it could be very effective. So community policing is like bringing policing to the local government. There's nothing wrong in it. I have nothing wrong in it. But what I frown at, or what I do not still subscribe to, is to have a single command for all this police setup. There is no way. The single command we have that is in control of state police is not effective. How do you expect them to be effective when it comes to community policing? The argument will be that, oh, the community will own it. How? How do they own it? Why don't we give money to the local government, give money to the state, let them have their own police setup, and all of us will be happy. The community is theirs. The state belongs to the state. No state will stand by and see what we have today, the level of insecurity in number of our states. No state will take pride in that. So the state will be committed to seeing, because any governor or most governors are elected at least to ensure security of lives and properties within their domain. So which state would now have a police of its own and don't deploy it for the good use to which we can put police? So I believe that what we have is still not effective, and combining it with community policing, no matter how, whatever grandeur, whatever you now explain the people that, okay, the community will own the police. It does not gel. There must be you must devolve this policing system to the various levels of governance. That's my own belief.
Well, yesterday the DIG did tell us that they are moving around, getting support from stakeholders, including governors. So, given this format that they're working on, are they going to get your buy-in as presently constituted? Yeah, I was asking that we spoke with the DIG in charge of research and planning, who community policing happens to be under his purview, and he gave us the impression that they are actually moving around, talking to former IGPs, stakeholders, and governors inclusive. So, given your perspective about how this should run, so as presently constituted, will they be getting your buy-in to carry this program out as it is now?
No, well, for me, whatever we have to live by it. But we can continue to press because this cannot be cast in iron. So we continue to make suggestions, and I'm sure that at the end of the day, whatever suggestion we come by will probably be looked into. So we continue to make suggestions, but I do not agree with the setup, and I believe that we make our suggestions. At the end of the day, the time will come. Everybody will have reason to agree with what we believe is best in the interest of our people in this country, that we need to go ahead and don't look back. Multi-level policing is the best for this country. All of us have to look at it. I know that is an idea that has been on. People have campaigned, have made the case for it, and we continue to make a case for it. And I'm just one of those who are strong believer in the fact that, look, we cannot have a central police command. It doesn't help the state, and security will continue to suffer until we are able to devolve this policing to different levels of government.
You know, having this multi-level policing, as you have put it, well, a lot of people seem to agree with it, but I think the challenge is how to operationalize it. And as I say, the devil is in the details. But just before we get into those details, I recall that the IGP has had several meetings with governors, Southwest governors, Southeast governors, and, you know, there's been several sit-downs. And I recall that in the beginning of this conversation, he said there needs to be a sit down. We need to sit down and have a conversation. And I'm wondering, the previous sit downs we had, or you had with, you know, the IGP and, you know, other structures, I'm wondering, did they fail to achieve the desired result? Why do we need to have, you know, more sit downs? What did those sit downs achieve, and what more do we have to cover?
Well, from what I know, it's all these conversations we've been having that has led to even community policing. I mean, it came up from the idea that let us all sit down and see what we can do and devolve policing to different level. But what we have failed to agree on is operation and command. And some of us continue to argue that, look, the operation and command of the multi-level of policing cannot be central. And I mean, if you are in a state, or you're a state governor, you are said to be the chief security officer and the area commander in some of the areas. You cannot, even your commissioner of police is not involved in posting. So you want to post area commander, it must come from Abuja to determine who is the area commander that you have about 9 or 10 in the state. How can we continue this way? How effective would that be? So I'm one of those who strongly believe that, look, let us devolve these things. And at the time, it's an idea that a number of people don't agree with now. It's an idea that it will come to be sooner or later, that there will be state police, there will be local government. At the point, we have their own community police. So all of us will work And there will be then when all of us converge together to see that we ensure security of lives and property. It is only then. But I am saying this, and I've said it over and over. I have no reason to be afraid. I stand by my words, whatever I say, that look, community policing, yes, good idea. Who is going to be in command? Oh, community will own it. Community own what? I mean, it's just on the surface. All I know is that everything is that we must work towards having multi-level policing, state police, the federal police, the community police, everything. Then we can be assured that everybody have responsibilities, and that's where I look at it.
So are you suggesting that for this multi-level security that governors should have, well, for the lack of a better term, I mean, major control over the coordination of, well, that level of security? I know Amotekun, for example, in the laws that establish it across the southwest states, the governors have, the prerogative on how much to pay, for example, who to appoint to the boards and what have you. Is that what you're suggesting that should happen with this multi-level security?
What I'm suggesting should happen is a replication of what we have at the national level. When I say this, I have said so once, that look, let us be fair to the president. The president is not in charge of the Nigerian police. The Nigerian police, by our constitution, is under the police council, and state governors are part of it. So we are supposed to take decision on what the police will do. We as a council took decision on who to be appointed as Inspector General of Police. The president did not on his own just say, I appoint Inspector General of Police. No, that is not it. So we will bring this down to the state level. Yes, the council will be set up, or the council will be as composed in the law, setting it up to say these and these and these are members. And most times, the governor will be chairman of that council. And the council will decide for what happens. It's not an individual. So maybe people are afraid that the governors will take charge of it. No, if the governor will not be the one that is solely responsible for state police. It will be a council. There will be a police council also at the state level, and the composition will be spelled out, and people will be there by virtue of their office. Some will be appointed. So when you get there, then you take decisions as to how the police is run. And immediately you have your own head of command. It takes decision. All you have to look at is that, look, what is happening? You're able to have a conversation with him, or you're able to discuss with him when there is a danger. You let him know on time, and he deploys his men and does whatever he wants to do. So it's not going to be a command that will be headed by the governor. It will be headed by somebody, a functionary of the police, of the state police. But there will be a council to which they are answerable to, not to the governor. A state police cannot be answerable to the governor. That's just like Nigeria police is not answerable to the president simpliciter. There's a council that commands it, that take charge of the activity.
Well, now that you've brought in the constitution, of course, gratifyingly also you're a lawyer, and you've brought in a critical angle, which is that of the police council. The constitution seems silent on how frequently the police council should meet, and consequently, what you are proposing now is calling for a constitutional review of sorts. Is there a proposition by the governors who think, like the way you do, about adjusting the constitution to factor in some of these things? Has there ever been such a move by the Governors Forum or any number of governors at all to present to the National Assembly?
Now, let me let you into this. I believe that what a major problem here is where we have not been able to found a consensus. You see, the moment you have a consensus of elites, then things will move. So it's unfortunate, I must say it here, there's no consensus among all of us as governors as to whether or not the time is ripe to have this multi-level policing. Once we have a consensus, then if there need to be amendment, all of us jointly will go ahead to see it. But this does not stop a few of us, if we can come together to at least get a private sponsor bill, and let's see how it goes through the National Assembly, whether it will sail through. But the major thing is that, let me confess here, you have spoken about governors forum and whatever forum. There is no consensus among us there. So all of us are not agreed yet. So until we all agreed, things will not move. But maybe through a private bill, I know that some people will come out and still oppose it, but maybe through a privately sponsored bill, let's test the waters at the National Assembly if they agree. But I'm sure that this is a great idea, but to get it through would still take some time. And just like any other idea, it faces opposition, but at the end of the day, if it's for good purposes, it will come out and it will work.
Another angle to that conversation is the fact that a lot of people say states have their peculiar security challenges, and they're thinking, having a consensus, wouldn't that mean that it will now be some type of one-size-fits-all? For example, just yesterday, an announcement was made that, there's a recruitment ongoing for community policing in a particular state. I mean, Southwest states have their own arrangement. So really, what will this consensus achieve if there are peculiar security challenges and, peculiar thinkings across states?
No, when you talk about peculiar security challenges, if I understand what you mean by that, is that, okay, maybe in some places you have issue of herders, farmers clashes. In some places you have maybe where you have kidnapping. In some other areas, there are other things that armed bandit. Yes, those are peculiar challenges. But whether we like it or not, those challenges can be found one way or the other in every other state. So I look at it from this angle. When you talk about state police, it is not to say that it's one shoe fits all. It is talking about the fact that, look, you have a police that is closer to the people, and they determine what they do at every given instance. And if tomorrow we say the qualification to be an officer in the police is that you must be a graduate, it's left to us. You can take that decision. If you say it's school cert, it's left to us. It's not one way you come up today, is this qualification, tomorrow you say the qualification is scrap, no need for qualification. It cannot be for everybody. Some of us believe that what we need to build today is a modern police in which when you see any policeman speaking, you know, you understand what he's saying. We don't need now at this level when we have so many graduates outside, so many people who have school certificate outside, and we cannot now concentrate on getting them there at the worst, the least certificate you can have. We can put it. The state police, every state can have its own yardstick. It's not one shoe fits all, and you can concentrate your energy on what is prevalent or the crime that is more prevalent in your state. Why not? There's nothing wrong. If it's armed bandits, you want part of your government. When you talk armed bandits, if you talk about them coming from outside the country, then it's not the duty of the police. It is more of the military to protect the integrity and of the country. They are the ones to face such armed bandits that are infiltrating into the country, if they are from foreign land, as we are told now. But the state police can concentrate on maintaining law and order, so that this thing does not filter into the cities or the local areas. So if you deal with that, if I believe that herder farmers problem is my major problem in my state, my police will be more concentrated on that. So it's not issue of one shoe fits all.
Well, since you have said that, I mean, we should be able to make do with what we have now, and what is being proposed now, what we're working on now, is the community policing project being championed by the Nigeria Police. And of course, the National Economic Council has also said that a small committee made up of the chairman of the Governors Forum, the IGP, and a couple of other people should find a way to operationalize it. Now, one of the things that we have been told is that there's going to be an advisory, community policing advisory board that will be working in each state. And of course, certainly they are supposed to work with you. in your state, for instance, you have already set up the Amotekun, which is supposed to help, with security of the state. What kind of working relationship are you looking at with your police, the Amotekun, which is backed by law, and this community policing initiative of the federal government?
But the same relationship as we have always propounded, that look, ours is collaborative. It's not confrontational. We have said all along that we are determined to collaborate, or we should and we will collaborate with even the existing Nigerian police, not the community police now. So for us, it's all for us to collaborate and work together. And community police will also even be more interesting for Amotekun to collaborate with, because we have deployed Amotekun into our rural areas mainly because this is where we have major problems of those who kidnap trying to get a route by which they take away their victims. And we are saying we can only block it. The community police can be of assistance in blocking it, in that all of us, we will be more or less, I'm not saying living permanently in the forest, because the forest is their forte. And we are saying that we have today in the Amotekun setup hunters who know this forest more than any other person. We are saying that we have recruited men who are prepared to go into this forest and pursue some of these kidnappers. So this is where what I believe that there will still be maximum cooperation. Amotekun is not set up to confront or to as a different. It is, yes, Amotekun is his own command, has his own command, but we are there to work with each other. And I believe that what we have seen in those states thus far has been major cooperation between all the security agencies, the military, the police, the civil defense, and Amotekun. And they are working together. I can give one or two instances we set up in which is Amotekun that went into the bush, and from there tracking until they got victims who were kidnapped. And the victims had to be released because Amotekun was on the heels of those kidnappers. They had to release them because they knew that some people are after them. And we're in the bush. So they were at their heels, and they had to release them on time in Akoko area. And we are still pursuing those who are involved. And because we found out that the Amotekun decided to adopt other things, like, okay, you wait. I don't have to even discuss, I'm sorry about this. We don't have to discuss all their strategies and co in the open. But they keep it to themselves, and I think it has been very effective. Where the idea is to collaborate with whatever we have now.
Okay, because I mean, yes, you say they are to collaborate, but what we gleaned from what the DIG was saying yesterday appears to be that Amotekun is supposed to be subsumed under this community policing, since this community policing is the umbrella with which all such outfits should function. Is that your thinking?
It's not. And it will never be accepted. Anyway, it's not our thinking. We have a law that set this up. If the DIG feels otherwise, there is always a place for us to ventilate it. There is no problem. We are not afraid of this. A law sets up Amotekun will operate under his own law. It's not going to be subsumed under any setup. No. We work together. It's collaboration, not that will be subsumed. No, Amotekun will not be subsumed. That is not the thinking, and that will not be acceptable to us. A law is set up Amotekun, and if anybody feels that there is any fault in that law, then you can go to court. We'll go there and ventilate whatever position we hold. All of us might hold different position. I don't say anything wrong in it, but the DIG is totally wrong. Amotekun will not be subsumed under the community police. No.
All right, Your Excellency, we'll come back and talk about, yes, some more community policing and a little more when we come back in just a moment. Please stay with us. Your Excellency, when you say there isn't any consensus among governors, does that suggest that this matter has been discussed at the governors' forum?
Now, what I'm saying is that we have raised this issue a couple of times, not only at the governors' forum. We had meetings, and I know, in which even Mr. President was in attendance. We raised this issue, but a few of our colleagues do not just agree that we come over the idea of state police. So if people they don't agree, I know that these have been not formally and informally. We have discussed about this over time, but all of us have not agreed to say that okay, there is no need to have state police. So that's the problem.
Well, if I remember properly, I think the current president of the Senate, I mean, in the 8th Assembly, and I think the former governor of Zamfara, the concerns they had about states that could not afford it, they then thought that for states that could, they might go ahead. But there was a question about, what about states that can't afford it? Have those concerns been properly addressed?
Well, the only way to properly address this is, one, let us start first, let us agree. When we agree that there should be state police, that in essence means that the money you are releasing to the police now, that we call it, if we just call it quote and unquote federal police now, you have to reduce it. So you must have, in creating state police, there must be corresponding responsibility to also release more funds to the state. So there's no state that won't be able to afford it, because more funds will have now to be eased from what you spend on federal police now to the state, so that they can, handle this properly. But whatever it is, some of us have always argued the point that, look, what we spend on police here is a lot. What we spend here, you don't have operational vehicles, the state will have to buy. You don't have this, the state will have to buy, building, everything. So what is left? What is left? Very few things. I know, yes, but I know that if we can ease some funds from the federal central police to state, a number of states will be able to afford to run their own police system.
The same thing if they were to deduct the money from states' accounts from source, and in the meantime maybe fund the current police before they then move on to maybe state police.
It's not the same. What we are saying is that I'm talking about effectiveness of the command. If it's one at a central point, it's never the same. The problem of the police now is, yes, it's fund. They don't have enough money. I totally agree with that. They are not properly funded. But the issue is command. How effective will it be? You have Inspector General of Police in Abuja. Problem is here. You now give instruction, and it is not effective. The issue is the command.
Step back a bit, really, to the point where you talked about not collapsing, in quote, Amotekun, to the community policing, policy, or the move by the police at the federal level to have community police, across states. And I'm thinking, on one hand, you have the IGP saying time and again that if anybody carries firearms that are unauthorized, they will be prosecuted. We know that it is important to have, Amotekun or the security corps have firearms to, do their work. I mean, they have to go into forests and what have you. And I'm wondering, how are you going to sort that detail out? Because this is seeming like a major issue brewing.
Well, it might, talking seriously, is a major issue. It's one in which we are trying to make a case, but we've not yet agreed with as to what should be with the issue of harmonization. And for now, Amotekun, we allow them to carry non-prohibited ammunitions. There's some ammunition that are not prohibited. Our hunters are in the bush fighting, but we know that with this non-prohibited ammunition, we cannot have what I would call, we will not be able to match the, I mean, all these armed bandits or kidnappers because of their own weaponry. We know that they have their fire is higher, and if we continue to want to confront them with all this non-prohibited ammunition, it can look suicidal. But again, we are adopting other means. Where a number of hunters have captured a few kidnappers. So what stops trained men using non-prohibited ammunition for now without taking total risk? Total risk. We are not encouraging them to take risks so that they don't die unnecessarily. But at least, just like the hunters and co, whatever we have now, we try to use having our people protected. Some people say, oh, it's like a ragtag police. It's not ragtag. It's that we are today, at least, handicapped deliberately because people believe that if they carry arms, I don't know what it will do to anybody. But for me, it is not anything too serious because these are going to be disciplined people. This is going to be a disciplined security agency. It's not if they carry arms, it will be for protection. It cannot be for any other thing. But we still keep having the discussion with the police, keep having the discussion at national level. But if, and I've always made this argument, if the Nigerian police have found it difficult to prevent herders who carry arms with their cows, they are carrying they are carrying AK-47. Some of them have prohibited arms, and you have not been able to prevent it. So when you have a discipline set up like Amotekun, you now say no, they can't carry arms. We will continue to discuss. We'll get to the point in which we will be able to force away, not force. We're able to understand ourselves that the need for them to carry arms is now. At least when civil defense started, they were not carrying arms. They didn't allow them to carry arms. But a case was made. At the end of the day, today they carry arms. I'm sure Amotekun case gradually will be like that. We're going to make the case.
Well, Your Excellency, it appears as though the IGP isn't bulging, and now we know that there's a community policing idea they're pushing. And I'm wondering, what if in eventuality that the IGP says, well, this is not going to happen except you collapse Amotekun into community policing, then would you just leave Amotekun to be handicapped, in quote, for the time being? What are you going to do, really?
I've said this. I said it clearly. Let me repeat it. We will not collapse Amotekun to community policing. Amotekun will start on his own. There is a law creating this Amotekun setup, this security setup. So it's not going to be collapsed. There is no intimidation. We are not people that can be intimidated, and we are not people that the IG will give order to. It's not possible. We will not collapse it. I've said so. There's no need for us to belabor this issue. We will not. But all we say is that if he's prepared, we are prepared to discuss with him. Let us discuss on this matter. Amotekun is different. Community police is different. Amotekun will collaborate. All of us will collaborate together. The issue now that is left is about carrying arms. And we say we will pursue this and make them understand at the end of the day. If the IG now does not understand, he will leave one day. Well, another IG will come, other people might understand. If he doesn't want to understand, we are not forcing him to understand. We are saying, let us hold discussion. But if they come out and want to repeat every time about Amotekun being like something that is they feel irritated about, it's not fair. It's not fair. We have taken them through this of what Amotekun is all about, and the state have gone ahead. We have our laws. We will live by that law and abide by it. And if anybody feels otherwise, let him go to court and challenge the law. There's no need for us to bicker on this matter. And we are saying with all sense of responsibility that Amotekun will stay and we will go ahead to negotiate. That's what I'm saying. We'll discuss with the police on issue of arms. And at the point in time, just like they did with the civil defense and a few other other paramilitary or military or police security today that are carrying arms. I know the time will come. But if he said no, I said we are prepared to continue to use non-prohibited arms, at least with our blood and everything, to secure the lives and properties of our people. That's all.
Okay. Now, you already agreed that it's important for us to collaborate, and of course, everyone agrees with that. But the issue of this community policing has been proposed. The idea that's been, bandied out there from the federal government is that governors will have to pay for the community policing officers that are going to be in the states. And of course, with all the recruitment paraphernalia, that's going to become up from the police management. How do you react to
that? I'm sure that they are taking this thing too far. Governors will have to pay. We have argued this point once. At the point they started with, it will be voluntary. They are not going to be paid. We told them it will not be effective. Okay, they are not going to pay. They now say you now shift the burden on the state governors again. Are you increasing their the allocation? Which state governor will accept that? I don't know. Other state might say yes, we will pay, but we will not pay. But are you increasing allocation? Let us be fair to ourselves. We are running a federal system. Let us just be fair. I'm sure that anyway, there's no problem. We will sit down and discuss this because we have a president that has listening ear. We can discuss with him. If the police don't want to discuss with us, we can discuss with the federal government. The president will listen to us. How will you now say the burden on state will keep increasing? We will now be the one that will fund community police. Where is the money going to come from? Let's be fair to ourselves. Let's be fair to the state. Where is that money going to come from? When we are struggling to get salaries paid, how do you say you want to shift financial burden more on us? To me, I don't know what my other colleagues feel, but I believe that most of us will agree with that position, except we devolve more money to the state. How will the state now be financing community police? It doesn't. I don't think it's going to work.
So this 15-man community policing committee that you inaugurated in June, what are they going to be doing now?
Well, I mean, they have their criteria. I think the DIG or AIG was in charge, was with us. They have their criteria of those who they chose. And yes, the state is inaugurated. Just they continue to work. Is an adjunct of the Nigerian police. So the Nigerian police will continue to be the one to sponsor it. It's not the state. They have nobody has ever come to us that will come and pay salary anyway. And if they come, we'll write to say no. We don't have extra money to do that.
Well, we read an article, in 2017, when you went to receive, I think, the then Commissioner of Police in the state, Mrs. Ibifiro, when you said that it was time for community policing, that there had to be more commands in the state. Was that the same thing that you mean now? Because at that time, people thought you strictly referred to community policing and that you were going to support it wholly. Was that the view, and has it changed?
The view I expressed then, that it was time for community policing, was to emphasize my position now about multi-level policing. There must be state, there will be community policing. So this is my view, and I stand by it. And that when the time comes, even if today the states are allowed to have their state police, it's not something you run into. It is something that we have to sit down with the federal government to still also discuss about how more money will come to the state to be able to sustain it. Just as when you have community policing, if it's agreed that it will be strictly community policing, that we have the local government in charge and co, then there must be more money to local government to run the community police. That's it.
Well, yes, you're going to face an election this year, so if we could just move on to that briefly before we'll let you go. How are things turning out for you? Because, several reports about what's happening, right from the deputy governor to your party men, those who have decamped, those who thought you were not going to get the ticket, people who think that, no, you won't get a second term. What's happening? How are you adjusting to all of this?
Well, I can assure you that from what we can see happening here, our project is God's own project. And he at his time, God at his own time, would ensure our victory. And the signs are so clear. You have spoken about Deputy Governor leaving. He is the only one that has left this party. And he left with no other person. The Secretary of State government who resigned has not left the party. He's still a member of APC. And I want to believe that he's working for APC. But when you talk about my co-aspirants and others that we ran together in the primaries, in the gubernatorial primaries, it's been a wonderful development. And I'm sure it's not happened in most of the states, but I'm sure this is a new phenomenon. And it has not happened in any state before. And I want to say that when all of us who ran for the gubernatorial position, all of us after the election, one after the other, and now all of us now agree that we work for the candidate of the party and ensure victory. This is something that is noteworthy. So there is no person that ran with us that has said is leaving APC to another party to go and contest or do any other thing. We're about 12 or so. The number might be slightly more than that. I'm not exact. All of us today have come together to say we work for APC. A number of us, many of us are our campaign secretariat, we are bringing for the use of the party. So when we all of us, as I mean all of us, the Shola Okes of this world, the Borofis of this world, Shegun Abraham, Ifeyodele, all of us. So what else? So for me, it's for me to say that I know that God's hand is in this project. Two, and thank my co-aspirants using this forum for this unprecedented cooperation. So with this, the science for me is very clear. We will be victorious. So if I use word in that song we always render, things are turning around for us and turning around for good. And I thank God for this.
Well, some will wonder, Your Excellency, what would cause a rift between a sitting governor such as yourself and his deputy? So, because, I mean, in the build-up to an election year, one, of course, you, as everyone would expect, want everyone on all hands on board, as we say, to ensure victory for your party. So, if you don't mind taking us back to what was the source of the rift between you and your deputy governor?
No, I mean, you said something which I marvel at. When you said, one will wonder what will cause. Why should anybody wonder what will cause a rift between a governor and his deputy? It is because most of our intellectuals are not working. If they are working, or those in the university community are not working, you can research into this. This is not new. It's a thing that happens every now and then. I can give it from history. From the days of our Chief Prophet Malowo and Akitola, you go to Obasanjo and Atiku. You come back to Ondo State, you come to Ajashi and Oboriowo. You are in Osun, you come to Baba Akonde and Omishore. You everywhere. You come to Oyo, you come to Bola Ige and Afolabi. Everywhere it happens. What I believe people should research into is this. Now, this office of a deputy or the office of a vice president, there's some danger in it. It is probably not one of the offices that will encourage what I would call unbridled ambition, because you are breathing and you are seeing somebody as your governor. Only people that has God that has what I would call, that have been guided by so many principles that God has been administered in the only REITs can have a settled mind to say, yes, as deputy, I want to live by it. Not everybody will be, as I used that word before, it's not everybody that will be Philip Shuaibu in Edo. Not everybody will be Professor Shibaju in Abuja. It's not everybody. So this happens every now and then. There's no need for us to think this is something too serious. It's not serious. People can be ambitious. Ambition a number of times will run people mad. Yes, maybe when the Susia said to you that you will be king, before you know, you will run up and down and want to kill people. So for me, it doesn't really matter. But I believe that a study of this can be done because it's a product. For me, it is like a product of our level of education, primitivity. You can only be a primitive person to think that somebody chose you to run with him, and the only your first option is to see that he look for his downfall. Doesn't really matter.
Right.
But I said to you, you can be ambitious.
Well, the build-up to these elections, I'm talking about Edo and Ondo state elections, have taken its toll on your party, the APC. I mean, we've seen what happened in Edo state and how that has caused some issues with the leadership in your party. And also for Ondo state, and a lot of people are wondering, what's the working relationship between you and the national leader of your party, the APC?
Well, the working relationship between national leaders of a party and I, or the national leader of a party and I, is perfect.
Leader,
For
right.
me, very perfect. There's nothing for me in Ondo state. We don't have problems. The problem erupted in Edo. The party is trying to manage it. But in Ondo state, we don't have problems. So I want to consider what is in Ondo state. There's no problem. We are not at loggerheads. The leadership of the party have tried their best. They came in and they are still in here trying to reconciliation, which normally happens after primaries. So what we have had is this. We had people on one side who said, no, we do not want him to be governor. And I said to them, they have a right to say no. There's nothing wrong in it. We're having primaries. Primaries will raise dust, as it does everywhere in the world. But after the dust of the primaries, it should settle. And to my surprise, and to the glory of God, the dust that has been raised in Ondo State primaries has settled or is settling. If there are other things, they're just little particles that are still trying to come up. So the dust will finally settle. And all of us have now decided to work together. So I don't think anybody should bring other problems to this place. We have lost just a deputy governor who has gone back to his home. If you came from PDP to try to accommodate you, if you don't believe you have progressive ideas, you go back to where you belong. He's gone back to PDP, but I don't know why he couldn't find a peace. He can't be at peace there. He has gone back. But fair enough. There's nothing wrong. You can see that trend. You are being pushed by your ambition. There's no problem.
You know, I want us to also touch on the issue of security. I mean, videos emerged over the past week of some violence that erupted in Idore and some other parts. And, you know, it's always a challenge, really, having security during polls in Nigeria. And people are looking to Ondo to have it different. So it will set a tone for 2023 elections. And there's a statement credited to a chieftain of the party saying that this election will be won at all costs. I'm just thinking, is that your thinking also?
Thank you for asking this question. The disturbances that occurred during our last election, local government election, is, as I said, why we want to capitalize on few disturbances here and there. This state we have 18 local governments. We are big. So if there was a disturbance in Idore and one other place, does that mean that the election is fraught or was fraught with disturbances? No. As you said rightly, hardly do you find elections you don't have such in pockets of disturbance. But I thank the police that they were able to handle it, because at this time around, we chose not to involve Amotekun and co, so that people will not say, oh, we have said so they will use it for police, for political purposes. We will still concentrate on using the normal security, the police and the military. And I want to thank them. They rose up to the occasion. Where you had these problems, they were all quelled at the end of the day. So for us, the fact that it happened is not an issue, because you expect it. That's why you had the police. That's why they were able to patrolling. That's why we knew that some people will raise this sort of problems. So that solves that. When you come to the point you made about one of our chieftains, that he made a statement. I know him very well, and I know that he's a man of peace. Just like I can boast of it, I'm a man of peace. But the issue is this: a number of things we do, we spin out of control, and I have said so a couple of times. I try to tell my people when I'm on the rostrum or I'm addressing them, and a few things I say, it can be out of indiscretion, but the important thing really is that you know the person I am. But when you are rostrum or you are addressing in manners of this nature, that's what I have always called political gunshot. It's like, if you will permit me, we call it Ibon Shelu. He cannot kill anybody. You are just saying all this thing for the fun of it. I don't believe he meant that. Oh, I believe that he will win the election. It's a do or die affair. He used the word I'm militant. If he's a militant, will he have his law office? He has been living in Akure since he has not gone back to that place and carry gun. The man has no gun. All these things are just what you say. Ibon Shelu, these are political gunshot. It doesn't mean anything to me. That's because I know him, and I know that there is no way he believes in thuggery. He believes that everything will be, all this will be done. It was just for me. Maybe because he allowed them to film him, it's out of indiscretion, but no doubt. And he has come to apologize, and I think we should put that behind us. We are not here to use thuggery to win this election. We will win this election by the grace of God. We are more than conquerors. So no problem.
Let me just add this as we wind down, Your Excellency, and good to know political gunshots don't kill. Well, about 4 months ago, you inaugurated a 9-member committee on COVID-19, the palliative committee, to deliberate and make recommendations on how to cushion the harsh effects of COVID. You talked about paucity of funds. How are you approaching that now with the complaints across the country about the economy and what people feel for COVID-19?
No doubt. We are faced with this downturn in the economy has affected us greatly. And even our committee, the committee of 9, they have tried their best. And I think among all the states, they probably rank very high as one of those who raise the highest number, the amount of fund. They rank very high. But even what they got is not enough. Today, we are waiting for the World Bank to assist. We are waiting for the federal government to assist. They are sending money. The money is there to come. I think it's about $1 billion each to assist in not the economic issue of it, but to assist in treatment, in management of the COVID-19 pandemic. But the issue you raise is that, look, we never prepared for COVID-19 pandemic. But as state today, we have met and felt that, look, the time now is now to prepare for this downturn in economy. And that the economic pandemic itself is going to be greater than the COVID-19 pandemic. All over the world, everybody can feel it. And in our state, we felt, look, the only thing now is that let us have the Ondo State Entrepreneurial Agency. And that is what we want to do now, to see that we build up in preparation for this economic downturn and build entrepreneurs who will, on their own, also be employer of labor, because a number of people are out of labor. They're not in the labor market. So we know the impact of it. But this agency, when they go out, and we have had to employ somebody as a special advisor who has been in this field for long in Africa and co to work
All right,
with
Your
us.
Excellency.
So because we know that the effect of it.
All right, Your Excellency, Rotimi Akeredolu, SAN, Governor of Ondo State. Thank you for talking to us today, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. I appreciate.
We're back in a moment, everyone. Please stay with us. Welcome back. We're turning our attention to health. Well, it may end up being legal, but we'll find out. But take a look at this report. It just highlights what we intend to focus on now.
Industrial actions in Nigeria's health sector are hardly straightforward. Health workers have the responsibility to care for lives, and they in turn have the rights to good welfare and conducive conditions. But when any of these responsibilities are neglected, the consequences can be far-reaching. At Baga area of Ilori, the Kwara State capital, sympathizers quietly troop in to the Olaguju family home. Their 30-year-old son, Olushola, an NPAR beneficiary, has just died after electricity supply powering his respirator was turned off. This was his last tweet. His heavily pregnant wife looks on. They had only just gotten married last October, barely a year ago. For the family of the deceased, his death was avoidable.
My wife called me that the hospital is on strike and I should come and pick him. Then I told her, what's the problem? How about nurses? She said they have drive all the nurse out. They were flogging them that they should go out of the hospital. So he was alone. So, and they switch off the light. He was on respirator. They switch off the light. So he have breathing difficulty.
All the private hospital, they carried him to, they rejected him. Some of them said that they didn't have oxygen. And he was eventually taken to the State General Hospital at Taiwood in Ilorin here. And eventually he gave up before he was even attended to.
UITH health workers under the aegis of the Joint Health Sector Unions Johesu down tools for a week to protest unmet demands. Resident doctors also embarked on a 3-day warning strike to protest an alleged assault on one of their members by a patient's family.
We have suspended the strike. The strike was informed from a security situation that happened in the hospital, in which one of our doctors was assaulted while on duty. It's not easy when someone lost a patient or when there's a loss of a relative or a loved one in the hospital. The truth is that as doctors, we try our best to make sure we keep people alive as much as possible. But that doesn't mean that death cannot still occur.
Efforts to get the hospital management and Johesu's reactions prove abortive, as several calls and messages sent to them are not replied. Olushola's family strives to move on, knowing that the loss of their son could have been avoided.
All right, so we're trying to find out what transpired because, I mean, yes, you heard the NARD, the national representative of the National Association of Resident Doctors speaking there, but then Johesu equally went on strike. So arguments concerning who did what led to the death of the patient, as it were. So those are some of the issues that we hope to at least get some clarity on today. And so we'll be joined by Olutunde Oluwawumi, who is the chairman, Johesu, that's of the University of Ilorin Teaching Hospital. He will be shedding light on what transpired. And then we'll also be joined by Imram Shitabe, who is a legal practitioner, to also give us his impressions of what has transpired, if there are any legal provisions as to why or what could have happened. So we'll just check now. Do we have Mr. Oluwawumi joining us via Zoom at the moment? Okay, well, if it's not, all right, Mr. Shitabe, well, we might start with you, even though, yes, we will need to hear from Mr. Oluwawumi such that you can then speak and as to what might have transpired. But if you could talk to us, Mr. Shitabe, from your legal perspective, before we get on to Mr. Oluwawumi, haven't seen the results of strike, well, who knows, by both unions now. What is the legal position? Because this family is hurting. What are the provisions of law? Were they within the law to have embarked on the strike? Did they act outside the provision of the law, embarking on that strike, which led to the death? And in this event, what options are open to the families?
Thank you very much. Strictly speaking, a hospital, a medical facility, and the members of staff that are delivering medical services in that facility have a duty of care to patients that come into use their service. And they have a duty to give reasonable care to avoid any foreseeable injury to that patient. That is the position of the civil law, and that has also been translated into an obligation under the criminal law, precisely section 303 and 343 of our criminal code actually criminalizes negligent acts, gross negligent acts that are in disregard for the personal safety and life of patients. And this, on numerous occasions, this has resulted in convictions for manslaughter. So definitely the hospital has a legal duty, with civil liabilities and potentially criminal liabilities, the hospital and also its medical staff. And on the area of strikes, I mean, I'm looking forward to hearing.
Okay, 2 unions embarked on strike. Now, if there is any medical negligence here, would it be for both unions?
Well, it would really help if we heard from the gentleman.
Yeah.
But I'm going to have to assume certain things in giving my view on this. First and foremost, in that establishment, as I said earlier, the medical facility has obligations, civil obligations, and its acts, and it is actually responsible for the medical staff and personnel that it engages, because they carry out their duties in the name of the facility. So in a situation like this where it appears, we haven't heard from the gentleman, but from what we've read, it appears that there is, neither of the unions are accepting responsibility. And each of them are saying that it wasn't them.
Let's go again. I think
the jury is out there in some cases on whether or not, medical service providers can go on strike, because if going on strike for them results in the death of some people, the jury is out there on whether or not they have that privilege of going on strike at the detriment or to the detriment of the life of anyone. What does the law say about that? Is there any law that says they can't go on strike? Is there any law that says, okay, you can go, but ensure that lives are protected?
Sure. There is a constitutional and a legally protected right of a worker to go on strike, to collectively go on strike as an act of collective bargaining. But however, there are checks and balances put in place. There are procedures that they ought to follow in order to make a strike lawful. So you could have a strike, which is a legal right, but you can actually go about it in an unlawful manner. And of course, where an injury occurs, automatically there is a strict liability, because somebody has been put to harm as a result of an unlawful act. So if a strike is found to be unlawful, an injury occurs, it is a very serious, it is an offense, straightforward an offense. So as I said, it would I'm assuming a lot of things.
Yeah, we're trying to use the information that is available to us. Also, available information indicates that, you know, the workers who embarked on this strike chose themselves, the medical health workers, to go put out the lights. If that happens to be true, the health workers themselves going to put out the light, is that right?
That is not right, because, as I said, there are laid down procedures in going for a strike. And at the same time, even in the course of a strike, it has to be a lawful conduct. It has to be a peaceful process. One cannot embark on an illegal act in the course of, a strike, or else it will be going from trying to solve one problem and going on to another. In this instance, where the power supply was cut out, that in itself is not permissible in law in the course of embarking on a strike, because it is actually putting a patient's life in danger, and that, you know, automatically will constitute an act of manslaughter. It has been said, I know a lot of unionists, perhaps they assume, or they have been led to believe that they are actually that they enjoy immunity in the course of going on strike. But I want to stress that immunity is very, very limited. It is restricted to acts of tort, which may ordinarily occur when people are gathered in one place, and they might cause obstruction or disruption, or they might cause disruption to a business. So it's basically to protect their right to strike, without being put to, any disadvantage in terms of the employer saying that, oh, they disrupted his business. So they have that immunity, in that situation. And also the immunity they have under the criminal law is restricted to acts of picketing, where they might gather outside somebody's home or outside an office to line up and to protest. So in that situation, ordinarily there might be an allegation of breach of the peace or obstruction, those sort of misdemeanors or simple offenses. The law gives them immunity in such a situation, but there is no immunity against taking a person's life. So it's very important that workers, in Nigeria bear that in mind. There is no blanket immunity against civil or criminal conduct in the course of a strike. And a strike has to be lawful. There are laid down procedures for going on a strike. And this actually starts with arbitration. There are specific provisions. They need to go, there is provision for appointing a conciliator or going before the industrial tribunal panel, or even being referred to the National Industrial Court. And it's when that process is exhausted that they can actually call a strike. They can't just call a strike at their whim or the next day. And it is a very, it's something that we really need to look at, because as a matter of fact, we are talking about those who, in this instance, we're talking about those who give essential services, doctors, nurses, those who work in medical establishment. There is a greater restriction on them going on strike. There is a far greater restriction, because they are seen as providing essential services that are necessary to the health, of the nation, the smooth running of the nation, just as the economy. So just hang on a minute. I think we've got him on the line. Yes.
Let's see if we could get Mr. Lowami. You're online now with Channels TV. If you can hear me, can you hear me first?
I can hear you clearly now.
Oh, nice. Okay, then, could you tell us, we've been waiting to find out from you because both the NERD says, well, they were not the ones who switched them off, that it was your union. Okay, so was it your union, Johesu, that switched off the ventilator that led to the gentleman's death?
Yeah. Oh, thank you very much. I want to say categorically that it is not my union that switched off the light. We considered the management. We gave concession when we embarked on the strike. We allowed NICU to work, ICU to work.
Listen to yourself. Just go ahead.
We allowed COVID holding areas to work. All the.
Here's what we'll do. Don't listen to your television set, okay? You could just turn it off so you can speak to us directly. If you can go on now, please. Big challenge trying to get in touch with Mr. Oluwaomi, especially because the family members said that, well, they were actually chased out. A lot of people were flogged out of that ward, and you wonder what exactly happened. If Johesu says they didn't turn off the electricity supply to the ward, then who did? Who flogged or at least chased people out of the ward? A lot of questions, actually. And, let me just go to Mr. Shitabe. You've heard at least some response from him saying that, well, they didn't turn it off. I think I was trying to say they made some concession and what have you. But still, what is the next way forward, really? Because this is something you find across, different health institutions. Things like this happen. But what's the way forward, really?
To be quite frank, a crime has been committed. I mean, we have to call a spade, because when someone turns off supply of oxygen, which in the circumstance of the COVID-19 pandemic that we have, it is tantamount to turning off a life support machine, more or less, and which, as we saw, resulted in the loss of life. Now, what makes it criminal is that that act itself is an act that one can reasonably foresee will result in physical injury to a person in that facility, and such an act would obviously have been committed with reckless abandon, because whoever turned off that machine knows precisely that oxygen is required to keep somebody alive. So the components of manslaughter are very much present there, and I think the only the logical thing is for an investigation to be carried out. To be honest, a life has been lost, and there needs to be the proper steps taken to to avoid similar occurrences in the future, and also to I wouldn't speak for the family, but they're entitled to justice as well. So, I mean, this is something that, quite frankly, a criminal investigation would need to be launched into this to ascertain who is culpable. We've heard each of the union denying culpability, but of course, at the moment, the employers, the facility, are responsible.
Okay.
Civilly, they are responsible, but not criminally at the moment.
All right, so we couldn't get across to Tunde Oluwaomi, chairman of Johesu. He's just his video is not coming on, not picking calls at the moment anymore. But well, he needs to clarify maybe subsequently, because we understand that was at the University of Ilorin Teaching Hospital, which is a federal institution, because the state government says, guys, don't make it look like if it's the state government. But look, something serious occurred, and so it should get that serious attention as well. So it will be interesting to see what they will say and how they clarify these issues. But we do thank you, Mr. Imran Shetabey, a legal practitioner. So we'll be back and take a look at what you are saying in terms of the feedback in just a moment. Do we have them right now?
Well, maybe while we're getting that one ready, we want to reference the police numbers that were dished out to us yesterday. It's 0805 700 0001 right there on your screen. Those two, and then of course the calls only number are there, and the WhatsApp only numbers are there. For those of us who, and that's the community relations unit. That one goes directly to that unit. So if there is any complaint, and of course, beg your pardon, complaint response unit. That's it. Complaint response unit. That's
how to get the community.
Yeah, I mean, because we were having that community conversation yesterday, and then the public complaint bureau force headquarters right in Abuja. That number is also right there on your screen.
Oh, don't ask us for the community policing numbers. That's what they gave us. Those are the valid numbers right now. So you can call them if you will. All right, so there you go. That is the show today. We thank you all for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
I'm Akeredolu.
I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day and please keep safe.